Chris Croft, a management sage. With wisdom vast, he takes the stage. From project plans to happiness tips, his insights spark success in all career trips. Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk Through Thursday. Today we have a special guest joining us, Mr. Chris Croft. Chris is a renowned expert in management with a wealth of experience and knowledge to share. He's not just your average management guru. Chris is a dynamic speaker, online content creator, and an author who has made a significant impact in the field of project management, time management, and team leadership. With over 40 courses on LinkedIn Learning and reputation for delivering engaging keynotes, Chris is truly a powerhouse in the management world. What sets Chris apart is his ability to tackle a wide range of topics with expertise and enthusiasm. Whether it's project management, negotiation skills, or even happiness tips, Chris has a knack for breaking down complex concepts into practical and actionable ideas, which he advised to everybody out there and so easy to grasp, must say. And let's not forget about his ultimate project management book on Amazon, which he has granted rave reviews from readers worldwide. Plus, if you're looking for a dose of inspiration and insight, Chris' free monthly email tips are must read. So, if you're ready to dive into the world of management with one of the best in the world of business, then you are in the right treat. Sit back, relax, and let's welcome Mr. Chris Croft to this podcast. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hi. No one's ever introduced me with a poem before, so that's really great. Thank you. Thank you, Barkha.
So this is a much awaited conversation, I must say, and I'm just so honored that you've joined us. I mean, thank you for making time.
No, well, it's a pleasure. I like talking about myself, so if any, but also I just want to get my messages out to as many people as possible. So the thought of the whole of India watching this and listening to this, that would be really awesome. That'd be really good.
Thank you. So, if we go back to the past and as we reflect on the journey you have on the remarkable body of work you have done, what emotions do you experience today? And looking back, is there anything you would want to alter or refine in hindsight?
Oh, well, emotions, mostly bewilderment, actually. Um, when I was a manager, when I was an engineer, I was not a very good engineer. I knew that. And I went into management. I think I was quite a good manager, but I kind of knew that it wasn't the ideal job for me. And I always hoped to find the right place for me. And doing training and making videos is the right place for me. I feel I found so I feel I'm lucky. But it's not all luck because I've searched and I've kept trying things till I found my right place. So I do feel I'm in the right place, but I also feel a bit surprised at how well it's gone. I feel surprised at how many people have watched my online videos, and I keep thinking, good grief, it's like, I think it's 20,000 people a day are watching my online videos. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, I'm trying to imagine that many people. So I'm really grateful and pleased and a little bit surprised that I am now managing at last to reach lots of people after a career mostly where I've been a square peg in a round hole. And that takes me to the second half is, what do I regret? And in some ways, I regret spending so long doing the wrong things. I do partly regret being a manager for so long. I should have given that up sooner. But actually, I don't think I could have, because you have to have the experience to draw on, to do the teaching. You have to have been through the pain and had all the experiences. So also, if it had been different, then the path would not have led me to here. If I hadn't done that last terrible job and been fired by that horrible man who's dead now, by the way. But if he, I'd like to thank Harry Evans for making me decide that this is it. I'm not going to be a manager at a factory anymore. I've had enough. He did me a favor, really. So, would I change if I had enjoyed that last job more? I probably wouldn't have left. I'd probably still be running factories and being okay at it instead of finding my ideal thing. So I think everything happens kind of for a reason. And I think I wouldn't go back and change anything, even though some of it was not much fun. Uh, that's my answer. And if it's you going through a patch where you're thinking, this is not great, maybe it is for a reason. Maybe it will lead to something better. Maybe you'll meet somebody or you'll learn something. And, you look back and you think, actually, I'm kind of glad it went that way. So
Definitely, I
I
agree
wouldn't
with you
change anything,
on
no.
this. Definitely. And talking of manager, like you have mentioned it quite a time now. So kindly walk us through your journey, your life journey of transformation and how you have built yourself as a person you are today. Can you tell us
Yes.
about that?
Well, the translation sounds like you go from a sort of caterpillar to a butterfly, doesn't it? But it hasn't really been that. Slow evolution, I suppose. Um, yeah, um, I think it's been a mixture of stupidity and stubbornness, really. So I went into being an engineer originally because I didn't know what else to do, and I was quite good at maths, not really good, but good enough. And I couldn't do pure maths, and I just thought, what's a job where you can sort of do, it's like a scientific sort of a job. And I just thought engineering looks good. And by the way, I would recommend being an engineer. I think I love engineers. I think they've made the world what it is. They're managing to feed millions of people and, irrigation and bridges and all that. So I think engineers are fantastic people. Um, and I thought that would be a good career. Actually, I just was a bad engineer because too much detail, and you have to be really thorough. And I'm not very thorough. I'm not very good at detail. And so I decided to go into management. I thought management would suit me more. I was better at management, but management didn't make me happy because I had to do bad things to people. I had to fire people and put pressure on them. And I just didn't. And there was a lot of politics in management. And I just wanted to get on with the job, really, and not have all the stupid. So it was sales against production and production against design. And so I was the production person, and it felt like a battle constantly between me and the other departments. And I thought, I don't want it to be like that, And then it was a battle between me and the workers, trying to make them work harder. And I didn't want that. And a battle between me and my boss. My boss was always trying to get 10% more out of the factory. And I just thought there must be a better way than this. So I banged my head against that wall for about 10 years, maybe more. And eventually, having done one job too many and just thinking, I don't like this anymore, there was a job advertised to be a university lecturer. And I just thought, I'll take that. And in fact, the way I say that implies that I decided to leave. But actually, I kind of got fired by my boss because I was always arguing with him. And he wanted me to do what I was told, even when it was the wrong thing. And I used to argue, and I was quite stubborn, and I used to just not want to do things if I didn't think they were the right thing. And in the end, he just said, "Do you want to have 6 months' pay and just go?" And I went, "Yeah." So I took the money and left. And then I just thought, what shall I do now? I don't want to work in another factory. And there was this job advertised at the Bournemouth University as a lecturer. And I thought, I'll take that. Looking back at my career, I argued with my boss quite a lot, and I didn't really ever stand back and think properly about what would be the ideal job for me. I just sort of carried on doing what I was doing, and I was made redundant 3 times actually, because there was the one I mentioned, but there was also when I worked at the university. I loved being a lecturer. It was very badly paid though, and they closed down the department after I'd been there a few years and got rid of all of us. And they just said, you can keep the customers because we don't want them anymore, but we're just going to not do any more training. So suddenly there I was, self-employed with my own customers. And that was pretty lucky. Um, I don't know really even how it happened, because I think I was doing quite a good job, but it was just some strategy decision made by the university to not do any more training courses for local companies. So So I ended up as a freelance trainer. And then I started to make videos because I just got bored with running the same course every day. And I thought if I record this on video, I could put it on the internet and maybe people would buy it. And actually, only a very small number of people did. Um, but that led to LinkedIn Learning contacting me saying, we've seen some of your videos. Would you make some videos for us? Um, and that's worked out really well because obviously they have millions of people a day going to their website, and a small number of them discover my courses, and it still leads to thousands of people a day watching me on there. And you get paid a little bit for each view, so it all adds up. And then, as you know, I've recently been working on filming people in India because LinkedIn Learning have realized they don't have very many Indian lecturers or authors, they call them. And they have a big Indian audience and not very many Indian courses. So I said, I would love to do that because I love India. And I said, I'll go to India and find people and film them. And they were, you could see these Americans going, you're mad. You want to do that? And I'm thinking, yeah, I want to go to India and eat curry and have fun and meet people and just join the craziness of Mumbai is where we've started. Um, and so I've been working on that recently, finding a studio and a cinematographer and Indian people who want to make courses. Um, so it's been a sort of evolution where I just keep discovering what the next step is. But I think it's very difficult when you start out to see where you could end up. You know, you have to just take each step and see where it goes. But I think the main thing is not to settle and stop in a job that is not perfect for you. You know, you got to think, well, this one hasn't worked out, but maybe what's the next thing I could try? And if you keep moving on and keep trying things, eventually you will find the right place for you. And I think that's kind of what's
And we
happened to
can
me.
see that the how strongly you have battled through the journey of the success you have today.
Yeah, I have been made redundant 3 times, and you start to think, is it me? Um, I know it's not now because I'm self-employed and I'm absolutely fine. But I think I'm probably quite hard to employ because I do argue with my boss. You know, I'm not very good at doing what I'm told. And I think there are lots of people out there like that who maybe are not employable, but would be great if they were self-employed. And I never imagined I could be self-employed. I thought it'd be too difficult. But actually, it's not difficult at all. I mean, it's just like a job, only you don't have a boss, but that's good, really.
Because
So I
you're
have been made redundant 3 times. But the other thing I did was I went to be a university lecturer on half the pay compared to when I was a manager running a factory. And I think that was quite brave to do that, to just say, well, I'm going to do a job I enjoy. And if it means less money, then that's what I'm going to do. And I think sometimes you have to have the courage to do things like that, just to think something's got to change because I'm not going to spend my whole life doing a job I don't really care about or I don't enjoy. You
yeah.
know, the search must go on, I
And
think.
hats off to you for that because now you are your own boss, isn't it?
I
And
love it.
talking, yeah, and talking of the 40 courses on LinkedIn, like you mentioned, you make videos for LinkedIn now. So, with
Hmm.
over 40 courses on LinkedIn Learning, what are some of the challenges or misconceptions you have observed people facing in areas like project management and happiness? I've seen that on your LinkedIn.
It's a
And
very wide
how do you
range.
address them in your course?
Yeah.
In
I mean,
Enhancement now.
how can somebody teach project management and happiness? Because those are very different things, aren't they? But the link between those is time management, because time management is related to happiness. Because what should you spend your time on? And the answer is you should spend it on things that will make you happy. So time and your life is only time, you know. So if you're going to look at happiness, you have to look at time management partly. And if you're very disorganized, it will make you unhappy. But time management is also related to project management because it's to do with being organized and planning and actually projects and happiness are related because one of the things that makes people happy is having a project. You know, we like to have something that we're working on and we have a feeling of progress towards some sort of goal that excites us. Progress towards a worthwhile goal makes us happy. It's one of the things. So they are related actually when you look into them. Um, and I think probably the biggest challenge people have with project management is they think it's going to be really complicated. They think they need to know all about maths and lots of diagrams with arrows on and things. And actually, project management is really easy. And there are, well, when I say it's really easy, projects are difficult because you're trying to do something that you've never done before. And quite often a salesperson has quoted a very low price and a very short time scale. So there are problems with projects, but the process of project management is actually quite easy because every project needs the same process. Every project, you list out all the tasks involved and you draw out a little diagram with the flow of the order of the tasks and make it into a Gantt chart where you've got like a time scale of how long you spend on each task. And if you follow that process, it will work for any project. So I love teaching project management because people always go, "Oh, right, is that it? Oh, well, that's very easy." And I go, "Yes, it is." So I think project management, the main misconception is that it's difficult. It's that it's complicated and that it needs lots of maths because it doesn't need maths. You have to add up how many weeks, but that's not maths. You could use a calculator anyway. So yeah, I think with time management, I think it's actually much more difficult than project management because it's all about how you live your life and your personality and your habits, and it involves changing habits, which are quite difficult. So if you have, like my wife has, if you have the habit of putting off difficult things, it's quite hard to overcome that habit. But time management's incredibly important. And then happiness, I think the main misconception people have with happiness is that it's impossible to change yourself. You just are a happy person or an unhappy person. And that's really not true. There are simple things you can do to increase your happiness, like starting a project or forcing yourself to come out of your comfort zone. And you think, oh, do I want to do that? But actually, do I want to learn paddle boarding or, do I want to go on that walk to Everest base camp do I want to go to Nepal? But if you do, it will make you happy because you'll have that feeling of achievement and things. And one of the happiness things that people always find very amusing, which I recommend, is make a list of all your friends and then get rid of some of them. Get rid of the friends that don't make you happy, because you probably have got friends that don't make you happy, who put you down, or maybe one of your friends has married someone horrible. So now when you see both of them, it's no longer very good. Or maybe you've just grown apart from some of your friends. So just get rid of them. And, maybe see them once a year or even less. Just send them a Christmas card or whatever and just fade them away. And they won't notice and they probably won't care. And actually, if you don't like them anymore, they probably don't like you anymore anyway. So,
Because we
uh,
send vibes and people catch them, right? Don't you
yeah,
think so?
yeah.
This
So,
universe is full of vibrations and radiations, and we all carry them and
yes.
resonate it, right?
And sometimes it doesn't resonate. And,
Yeah.
and, um, and we feel bad about doing this, but actually there's a lot of your happiness comes from your good friends. And it's not, we haven't got enough time for all of our friends.
Yeah.
So to get rid of the bad ones and then spend more time with the good ones. So I go, we have a curry every now and then with a group of friends here in England, and we all meet up and have this meal and it's great. But we only do it probably every 2 or 3 months. And everyone always says, we should do this more often. This is so great. We should do it more often. But then, it's just hard to find the time. So get rid of the stuff that doesn't make you happy, including people, and then spend more time on the good friends. So I think, there are lots of things you can do to increase your happiness. Happiness is not impossible to change at all.
And change is the only constant in this world. I've
Well,
experienced
yes,
this, and yes, the very beautiful thing that you've mentioned about time management is like we can't manage time. We have to manage ourselves according to the time, the 24 hours we have got in this
yes,
universe each day, right?
yes.
And going
Yeah,
back to project management, you've authored a project management book on Amazon. I've seen that, and that's great. So,
I,
what motivated you to write it? Oh my God, yes, this one.
uh, yeah. Can people see me or are they just listening? I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to wave my book around. This is my project management textbook, and it's big, isn't it? I mean, it's 300 pages,
Oh my
uh,
God.
but it's very readable. It's like me chatting, you
Yeah.
know? And actually, if you talked for maybe 3 hours and wrote it down, you would end up with a book this big. So it's only a few hours, actually. And most of it, there's lots and lots of diagrams. Um, so
which
it's
makes
very,
easier for this people to read because they
yes,
can relate it.
it is. Don't be frightened. The reason I did it was I got asked. So there's a series of, you've probably seen the Project Management for Dummies and Negotiating for Dummies. It's a series. I don't think they're very good. And there's this new series called the Quick Start Guide. So Quick Start Guide to everything. And they said, would you do the Quick Start Guide to Project Management? And I'd been wanting to do a book on project management for a while because there are certain bits of the theory that I think are not quite right. And I wanted to set the record straight and get my ideas actually properly published. But I also wanted to do a very short, easy book on project management because all the project management textbooks are really big. And I thought, quick start guide, I'll do that. It'll be 80 pages, just very basic how to do a project. So I said yes. And then they said, well, how soon can you deliver the 300 pages? And I said, 300, can't it just be 80? And they went, no, no, all our books are 300. You have to do 300 pages. And so it ended up not being as short as I wanted, but it still ended up being a very fun, easy read. But it does contain several places where I have put the record straight about project management. So I won't bore you and go into loads of detail about project management, but I'll give you two very quick examples, right? There's one project management method for estimating a task. So let's suppose you're going to estimate how long it takes you to do a journey to visit another city. And maybe it normally takes 2 hours, but it could take 1 hour if you're very lucky, or 4 hours if you're very unlucky, right? What they do with this method, which I don't like, is it's called the 1-4-1 method. So they take 1 times 1 hour, 4 times the 2 hours, and 1 times the 4 hours. So they take basically 4 times the average and 1 time the best and the worst. You add them all up, you divide by 6, right? But the problem with that is it doesn't actually give you a very good answer. So my method, which is better, is to go halfway between the average and the worst. So the average was 2 hours. The worst was 4 hours. So halfway between is 3. So my method, you just take 3 hours. That's what you use as your project plan. If you were telling your friend when you will arrive, you tell them 3 hours, right? And if you do that, you'll be 90% safe. There's maths behind this I can prove, but don't worry about that. So basically, you just go halfway between the average and the worst. And that is much better than the 1-4-1 method. And I've been telling people this on training courses for years, but I wanted to put it in a book and get it out there. The other one is that when you plan a project, you should get all the tasks in order, using maybe post-it notes or something. So you have the running order of the tasks, and you find the longest path, which is called the critical path. And then you make that into a Gantt chart where you actually draw it out to scale. So you have the months across the top. And then you can see this first task is going to be January. The next task is going to be February and March. The next task is going to be, say, the first half of April. And so you have it drawn out. And most people who do project management think that you should either do the post-it notes or the Gantt chart. And they're never really sure which. And most books have a chapter on post-it notes and a chapter on Gantt charts, and they just leave you to decide which one to have. But in my book, I have said you must have both. So you have to do the first one and the second one. But it's quicker if you do that because the Gantt chart is very easy to do once you've got the post-it notes. So you do 45 minutes to do your post-it notes and then about 10 minutes Gantt chart, and it's done. Maybe just half an hour and 10 minutes. Whereas if you try to do a Gantt chart, you'll spend a whole hour and it'll be wrong. So in my book, I'm very, very clear about you need to do both. And I don't think any other book on project management really says that. And I wanted to put that in writing. So that's what I did. So I when they asked me, I thought, I don't really want to write a whole big book, but it is a chance to write the ultimate project management book that will be both fun to read and correct. Because honestly, I think these things are mistakes. And there's a couple of other technical things which also I think are wrong about project management theory. And in my book, I sort all that out. So I do think my quick start guide to project management is the ultimate project management textbook.
And the way
So
you have
there it is.
explained it, no, 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 the way you have explained it seems so easy that I think most of the people, after knowing this, will be going to read this.
Well, I hope
Great
so. I mean,
progress.
it's a little bit expensive because I think it costs about £20. I don't know what that is in rupees. That's going to be probably 2000, isn't it? It's quite a lot. But obviously, if you can make your boss buy it, get your company to buy it, then
Mhm.
everybody can use it and refer it. It's
True.
even got some really cool things where it's got a little like a QR code, and you
Okay.
can just put your point your phone at the QR code, and it will be a video. It'll play video. Um,
Wow.
so about 15 places throughout the book, there's videos of me explaining stuff as well, which I think is a really nice idea, isn't it? That was the publisher's idea, not mine.
But that's
Um,
very creative
so
and
yeah,
very
so I'm
easy.
proud of that.
Yeah.
It's come out really well.
So hats off
Um,
to the kind of work you have done. Amazing, amazing. And the way you have explained it, it's very insightful.
I
So,
want it to be simple and easy for people. That's my main obsession is for it to be easy. Because I think when you buy a book on something, it's really easy to think, oh, I can't be bothered with that. It's too hard. I'm not going to do that.
yeah,
So all my books, I'm really obsessed with trying to simplify it down and just get to the easy bit that's in the middle of project management or time management or whatever the subject is.
it reaches brain very easily.
Yeah.
So, Chris, in your experience, what are some of the essential qualities or skills that make someone a great boss or leader? And how do you help individuals develop these attributes? Can you tell us about that? Because you were really pissed off with your boss in the
Oh,
past.
I've had some bad bosses. Yeah, I've had some terrible bosses. I mean, there's a leadership's really complicated, and there's a big long list of all the things that you're supposed to do. If I could pick three quick things, I think the first thing I would say delegating is probably skill number one. Um, to good bosses, delegate nearly everything to other people, and bad bosses won't delegate. They try to do everything themselves. They're too busy because you can never get hold of them because they're too busy doing everything. And then when they do delegate, they interfere and they micromanage. And so just to let go of things. And I think the thing to realize with delegating is it's not actually risky. Bosses say, oh, I couldn't let go because what if it goes wrong? But actually, if you monitor, it's not risky. So I could delegate something to you and I could come and check on you every 5 minutes, just to see what you're doing. Or even I could delegate to you and I could sit on the other side of the table and I could just watch you work. Now, that would be a waste of my time and it'd be horrible for you. But, it doesn't have to be risky. So if you check maybe every day, the worst that will happen is they've done nothing for a day or they've gone in the wrong direction for a day. But you can always say, well, hang on a minute, you're going in the wrong direction and you can correct. So there's no risk with delegating. So I would say to a boss, please just, everything that's routine, delegate it. Everything that repeats, delegate it. And also look at the person and think, well, Barkha is already good at this. So I'm not going to just give her stuff she's good at. I'm going to give her the next level up. So she's at, let's say, 7 out of 10. What have I got that's 8 out of 10 on the difficulty? And give her that and keep stretching her and making her learn new things. So, sometimes you think about the person rather than the task, but generally just delegate as much as you can. And I'm amazed when I'm doing a course, we have coffee and everyone's on their phones and you can hear them saying, yes, charge them 1,000 rupees for that job. And you think, does this person not know what the pricing is? They should know how much to charge. You shouldn't have to be deciding that. There should be a list of what to charge, or the person should be trained, or they say it's in the blue folder on the second shelf, and you think they should know where it is. They can't manage to cope for even a day without you. They have to phone you up with trivial questions when you're away on a training course. So you should feel ashamed if people phone up with questions. Not, you shouldn't feel useful. Oh, yes, I told them how much to charge. Oh, yes, I told them where to find it. You shouldn't have to do that. It means you've failed as a boss if people have to phone you with questions. So delegating is really important. The second one I'd have is communication. I just think most bosses don't communicate enough. They go, well, I told them once, that should be enough. You have to tell people lots of times. So the answer is to tell them face to face, one to one, in a meeting, put a notice up. You have to tell people lots of times. Just communicate more than you would think is needed. And that takes time. I know you probably have to allocate an hour a day to just communicating. And I know you want to be on your emails and making big decisions, but no, you have to spend an hour a day just telling people what you're doing and why you're doing it and what's happening in the company, and really make an effort. A long time ago, when it was only men, that somebody made a quote, which was, "He who communicates leads." Now it would be, the person who communicates leads. So if you're the one saying, this is what we're doing, you're the leader. So it's a really important. So communication is just incredibly important. And all the best leaders of history have been great communicators. I could mention Gandhi, for example, who was just a brilliant communicator. So communication. The third thing is more difficult to change, but it's creativity. And I think really the most important thing that a boss is supposed to be doing after they've delegated all the detail is to create. Because if everything stays the same, you don't need a leader or a boss. Everyone can just carry on doing their job the same as yesterday. So a boss's job is to change things and to decide what the change is going to be, and to be ahead of the game, having ideas. And I think it's actually quite difficult to make yourself more creative. I think it's a bit of a built-in quality, but you can learn a certain amount of creativity. You can force yourself to do things differently and to come up with ideas, and not always take the first idea, but think, well, I've had this idea, but is there an even better way maybe? And so I think, there are ways to learn to be creative. And I definitely think you should value creative people and not think of them as troublemakers who keep questioning, but to think, well, this person's really good because he or she is having ideas. So I think creativity is what management's really for. So they would be my big three: delegation, communication, and creativity.
Creativity. And all of these three, if they mix together in a person, they'll really bring out satisfaction and a kind of happiness in them, because the
Yes.
end result would be great, right?
Yes. Have ideas and then delegate the implementation. Let people
Definitely.
choose how, and then keep communicating about, this is what we're changing. This is why we're doing it. It's going to be fine. These are the benefits. Lots and lots of communication. Yeah.
True. So, Chris, can you talk about your big book of happiness? Like, if you're talking of happiness
Oh,
here, can you talk of big book of happiness, and yes, this one, and how the principles outlined in it can
mm.
positively impact both personal and professional life of any person?
Well, yeah. I'm obsessed with happiness because I think it's the most important thing. Why would you do anything if it doesn't make you happy? So some people are trying to be successful, they're trying to be rich, but it doesn't make them happy. And in fact, being rich won't make you happy anyway. And we know that. There's been lots of studies done, rich people, poor people. Now, if you're really poor, if you're starving, then that's a problem. But actually, the first time I went to India, I went on a tour of Rajasthan, and we had a driver, a Sikh with a big moustache, and he was great. And we drove around in a white, is it an Ambassador, the white car? And we drove past some really poor, like ghetto type areas with people were just sitting by the side of the street, and they were maybe just sitting, talking or playing cards or whatever, and they were all smiling, and they would wave, and we would wave, and I was just really amazed. The first time I went to India, I was quite shocked at how poor a lot of people are compared to here in England. But I was also amazed by how they were still happy. And and I know, obviously if your children are ill or you're starving, that's obviously a problem. But a lot of these people, they had enough food and they had nothing else. Maybe their house was just, like a shanty town with some plastic as a roof, but they were happy. And I was sort of worrying about my job, and I was worrying there was a little scratch on my CD I was listening to or whatever. And I suddenly realized that my problems are nothing, and And ever since actually that trip to India, it made me really interested in happiness. And there's no doubt that money and happiness are not really connected. And so I've been thinking about it and investigating it ever since. And the thing that I feel I have failed on actually is to find a structure to happiness, like a model, like a 2 by 2 or 3 by 3 or something which says, so Maslow's hierarchy, Maslow was studying happiness, and it's been taken now for motivation instead. But he said, you got to be physically okay first. You got to feel some security. And then you got to have friends, be part of a social group. So, these Indian guys living by the side of the road, they don't often have enough food and they don't often have security, but they do have friends and they are part of a social group. And then his fourth level was to be important, to be valued. And then the fifth level was to do interesting work, to make a difference. And that's the ultimate. He said the ultimate happiness is to be doing something where you're making a difference. And that's what I actually love about the thousands of people who are watching my training, because I really do feel that I've probably made a difference to quite a lot of people. And that's just great. That's the most important thing of all. So Maslow was studying happiness, but I haven't really come out with anything half as good as that. So what I've ended up doing is collecting lots of little things that you can do to increase your happiness. Like, we mentioned friends and projects and things earlier, didn't we? And I'll mention one more in a minute. So my book is just a collection of lots of things you can do to be happier, right? And I would like to have a structure underneath, but I guess it doesn't really matter as long as it's loads of practical things. And I found there were 87. So I've called it The Big Book of Happiness, 87 Practical Ideas. And when I was trying to think of a title, I was trying to think of clever. I thought about calling it Harvesting Happiness, because I do think it's to do with pulling happiness out of everything that happens every day. But there's already a book called Harvesting Happiness. So that was annoying because I thought it was quite a good title. And then a friend of mine said, why don't you call it what was it called? Something like How Wide Is Your Smile or something. I thought, no, that's too cheesy. It sounds like a 70s. And in the end, I thought, I'm just going to call it what it is. It's just a big book of happiness. It's sounds like a child's name, didn't it? But I just called it The Big Book of Happiness. And in fact, I don't know if you can see on this, I made a happiness logo, which is like a
Yeah,
star with a heart in the middle.
yeah.
And I don't know if you can see one of the legs. There's a person who's
With a big
who's
smile.
they're covered in
Hellos.
colored paint. Because
Yeah.
is it Kohli? What's the
Fully,
Indian?
fully.
Yes, this festival where you all throw
Yeah.
colored paint. And
And
I
we,
thought
yeah.
that is one of because to get a picture of happiness is quite difficult, really. And I think that idea of all just throwing colored powder at each other is almost happiness personified, isn't it? We keep coming back to India. So my book is it's just a collection of things, and you could open it on a random page. So I've got this page I just opened. It says drawing and novelty. So, one of the things you can do is just be creative and just do some art. And I've put in there, don't worry about whether it's good or bad, because as long as you like it, that's great. And novelty, just, doing things that you haven't done before is a source of happiness. And so, there's almost a thing on every page in this book. Music, listening to music. And one of the many ways you can get more happiness is sport. And that's because when you've had a horrible day at work, you have all this adrenaline built in your system, pumping into your blood, this adrenaline that makes you feel just makes you feel angry. And adrenaline is designed to make you fight or flight. So adrenaline is when you meet a tiger in the woods. I was told, by the way, in Mumbai, there's a whole load of tigers. There's like 20 or something in Mumbai. Can that really be true? But anyway, if you meet a tiger in the woods or in Mumbai, your two options are to run away very fast or to fight. I would recommend running away. But adrenaline gives you extra strength for running away or fighting. But in most situations in modern life, say in a very annoying meeting or you've got a terrible boss, you can't run away and you can't fight. You can't punch them. I mean, you can't. So how do you get rid of this adrenaline that's building up in your system? And the answer is sport. So if you whack a tennis ball, for example, that's fight. Or if you go for a run, That's flight, isn't it? And you only have to go 5 minutes of running to burn off all the adrenaline from a very stressful day, and you feel fine. And you probably feel a bit tired, but you feel great because you can burn off. So you don't have to even go running for very long. So any kind of exercise is great because it gets rid of adrenaline. And there's other reasons why sport makes you happy as well, because you get the achievement of scoring a goal or hitting a 4 or a 6 or something like that. And also, something like cricket's a team game, so you get all the interreaction, and you get to tell other people they've done well and to celebrate and all that thing. Or even if you lose, you can all go and have a little bit of a commiserating meal afterwards, some curry and some beer or whatever. So there are lots of advantages of sport, and that's a big source of happiness. So in the book, I've just got a whole load of list of things you can do, and my favorite thing actually from the whole book is about negative emotions. And I only realized quite recently that you can actually get rid of negative emotions if you want. So it, I don't know do you have a negative emotion, Barker, that you suffer from a lot? What's would it be guilt or worry or
Yeah.
anger, irritation, or I don't know. Do you have a negative emotion that is your commonest one?
I can talk like I think it's guilt sometimes because of
Yeah.
not being present for the people who need me sometimes. Like
Yes.
it rarely happens, but it do because I can't really change the world for them, right? But
Yes.
yeah, I wish I could have, but it's their journey, and at the end of the day, I
Yeah,
have to stop
absolutely.
feeling guilty.
We'd all like to spend more time with our family and things, wouldn't we? And we'd also like to do something for the, you know, people who've got no money. And there are lots of things we could easily feel guilty about. Um, so if we just take guilt as an example, every negative emotion, by the way, mine is not exactly anger, but like frustration, just being, oh, so somebody's parked a van opposite my house today. So I can't get my car out of my drive very easily. I have to go backwards and forwards lots of times to get my car out. And I'm going, oh, this stupid van, you know? And it's not a big problem, is it really? But so that's mine. But if we look at both those negative emotions, we are choosing our negative emotions because we think we get a payoff. So I think that by getting angry, it will somehow make the van go away, but it won't. And we think that by feeling guilty, that we will somehow improve either our behavior or will improve other people's lives. So feeling guilty that you don't visit your mum often enough doesn't actually make any difference. It doesn't make you visit your mum anymore. You have to actually do something about it. And guilt is a substitute for taking action. So you can think, well, I'm a bad daughter, but at least I feel guilty about it, and it makes it okay. But it doesn't. And if you did something really bad, by the way, I mean, not visiting your mum, I know you visit, I'm sure you visit her often enough. But if you did something really bad, like suppose that you killed your neighbor's cat because you didn't like it coming into your gut, that would be a really bad thing, wouldn't it? And you can't say, well, but I'm not that bad because at least I felt guilty. Well, no, feeling guilty doesn't make it okay. You did a bad thing. So guilt doesn't make you a better person. It just gives you an excuse to not take action, right? And getting annoyed with things actually doesn't help. Only you suffer. And if I actually go around and shout at my neighbor, your van, you should move your van, that's not going to really help either. What I should do is just calmly go out and say, actually, it'd be really nice if you could move your van a little bit because I could get out more easily. And he'll go, oh, sorry, Chris, I didn't realize. It will be fine. So, so these negative emotions are not a good solution for the world. And maybe they help when we have to fight the tiger. Maybe we have to get angry or something like that. And maybe if you had no guilt at all, then you would be a very selfish person, and so would I. So a little bit. And so the secret is to let the emotion happen, but only for about 5 seconds. And say, okay, I'm feeling guilty. I'm going to do something about it. Or I'm feeling annoyed about the car, but I'm not going to get annoyed. I'm not going to feed the flames and think, yes, oh, that van, oh. I'm not going to let it become big. I'm going to go, okay, I felt a twinge of annoyance about the van, so I'll do something about it. and I'll go and chat to my neighbor.
Yeah.
So once you realize that your negative emotions are not helpful, you can choose not to have them. Once you realize that the payoff you think you're going to get is false, you then start thinking, well, okay, so how do I get a good outcome? And of course, the answer with guilt, there's actually two choices with guilt. Either take action and go and visit your mum more,
Mm.
or say to yourself, no, I'm a good daughter. I visit my mum as often as I can. I
Mm.
have to do all my other things as well. So I'm going to be happy the way I am. I think of these as the angel and the devil, by the way. So I think with some guilt, we should go for the angel option and not shoot the cat,
Definitely.
and maybe we should visit our mum more often. But with other things, we should take the devil option and say, well, no, I'm doing the best I can. And I'm not going to change. I'm just going to be happy the way I am. I give a certain amount of money to charity. That's the most I can do. Or I visit my mum as often as I can. That's the most I can do. I'm going to enjoy eating that extra samosa. And I know it's
Oh my
greedy.
God.
I know it's
Lovely.
greedy, but it's a lovely, crunchy, big, succulent samosa.
Definitely.
I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm not going to feel guilty
That's
because,
my favorite snack, Chris.
oh God, I love samosas so much. But if you eat the samosa and then you feel guilty,
Yeah.
then that's just a crazy behavior because then you don't even enjoy it.
Yeah.
So either don't eat it or eat it and enjoy it, but
Definitely.
don't have guilt. So I think negative emotions are really interesting. And this idea of getting rid of them because the payoffs are always false. Like envy will not give you what other people have got.
Definitely.
It just poisons you. So, do something about it or decide you can't and just don't be envious. But, all these negative emotions, worry is a substitute for taking action and planning but if you just sit there and worry, that's the worst thing to do, isn't it? So anyway, you can improve your happiness by getting rid of your negative emotions, and that's all in my book, The Big Book of Happiness. By the way, I said that somebody else has already done a book called
Harvesting.
Harvesting Happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone else has also done a book called The Big Book of Happiness. I discovered after I made the book that the Dalai Lama has done a book called The Big Book of Happiness. Oh, that annoying Dalai Lama. But anyway, there's mine and his, and get both because
Yeah.
his book's great as well. Of course,
I'm
he's a
curious to
god.
read yours first.
Yeah, maybe read mine first. But
Definitely.
yeah, I'm not going to criticize the Dalai Lama. He is literally a god, isn't he? So yeah, two
But
different books.
But the way you have told us about happiness, I think really personal development is very important. And that will ultimately give you happiness when you are at peace and
Yes.
satisfied with yourself. Yeah?
Well, learning is part of it. Yes, we do get
Definitely.
happiness from learning new things. It's never ending, but you can always learn new stuff. And obviously, I've made lots of training courses which
I,
people can do. You get them from udemy.com or if you have LinkedIn Premium,
mm,
you can get them on there. You can also do, if you have ordinary LinkedIn, which is free, you can do a 28 free day free trial,
okay.
and or you can persuade your boss to buy LinkedIn Learning. And it's about $20 a month,
All
but
right.
you get access to the whole library.
Okay.
And so you could say to your boss, look, instead of sending me on training courses, why don't you give me LinkedIn Learning? And I'll watch a course a month and I'll give you notes on all the things that I've learnt from that course every month. And
Great
how's that?
idea, Chris.
That's a good
I,
exchange, isn't it? Your boss perhaps would say, oh, all right, if you do that, I'll pay. And then you could get
Definitely.
LinkedIn Learning. It's a thought.
And also talking of keynotes, like you've just mentioned, your list of keynotes topics covers a wide
Yes.
range of management and personal development areas as well, right? So how do you
Yes.
tailor your keynotes to engage and inspire different audiences? Can you please brief us
Yes.
about that?
Tailoring.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, every time I get asked to do a new keynote, um, I write it and I do the talk, half an hour, three-quarters of an hour, and I add it to my list of keynotes that I can do. So my list has got longer and longer. So now I've got a really long list of keynotes. So the first way that they get tailored is quite often people just pick one and they say, oh, we want that. And it's already kind of what they want. So picking from a big list is the first bit of tailoring. But then within that, so suppose they say we want to know about the 5 mistakes that salespeople make, right? Which is one of the things I do a talk on. I would then say to them, do you have anything in mind? What are the mistakes that your salespeople are making at the moment, which I could mention if you like. And sometimes they say, well, I don't know. But sometimes they say, well, one of the mistakes they make is they let themselves negotiate down on price. But I don't know what the others would be. So I will use their one and I'll do 4 more of mine, And sometimes they have 2 or 3 things they want me to mention. So I do ask them about that, and I pick within a subject. Or if I was going to do a keynote on time management, I would say, are there any particular time management problems your people have? Is it not delegating enough, or interruptions, or putting things off, or meetings? And sometimes they say, oh, I want you to mention meetings, and I've got lots of material on meetings I would then put in my talk. But sometimes they say, well, no, we just want you to say what you think, So there's a bit of tailoring there. But the third part of tailoring, which I think is maybe the most important, is adapting on the day. So when I actually do my talk, even if it's to an audience of like 500 people, I say to them, what's your biggest time management problem? Or, what happens in meetings when you have, because we've decided we're going to talk about meetings. So I say, I'm going to tell you some things about meetings. Can you just shout out your pet hates to do with meetings? And people say things like, oh, when someone goes off on red herrings and goes off the subject, or, people who turn up late or whatever. So then I make sure I give answers to those on the spot, which is a little bit risky, but they always ask for things that I've talked about before, because I've been doing it for 25 years. So I have answers of what to do if somebody's late, or, what to do if somebody goes off track, or whatever. So I do actually tailor it while I'm doing it. And if it's not a keynote, if it's like a proper training course, then I tailor it a lot. So say a negotiating session, which I do over Zoom, by the way, as well. I do negotiating talks for people in America and India and all over the place, really. The only difficult one is Australia, because the time zone is completely different. So it has to be in the middle of the night. But pretty much everywhere else we do over Zoom. And I would ask them about real negotiations they've had and problems they've had. And so it would be very, very tailored. So I like adapting on the day, because otherwise it's too boring for me, because otherwise I know in advance what I'm going to say, and it's too predictable for me. So I quite like the sort of spice of asking the audience questions and seeing and I get them to put up their hands. How many people have this problem, or how many people agree with this? And if they don't agree, why don't they agree? And so, I like to interact with the audience quite a lot. In fact, I would say that's probably my number one presentation tip, is interact with your audience. Don't just drone through PowerPoint slides, but ask the audience what they think and get them to vote, and who thinks this, who thinks that. Get them to shout out examples and things. And with a really big audience, people don't always like to shout things out, but they're quite happy to vote and put their hands up. And I do that on Zoom as well. Even if I've got maybe 100 people on Zoom, I get them to say, do you like, are you good at time management, with their thumb up? Are you bad at time management, or are you sort of medium? And I get them to vote with their thumb, and sideways means sort of okay. Or, how good do you think you are at negotiating? And I get them to vote at the start and things. So I get them to, or I say, do you like that idea? Do you think that would work? And I get them to vote all the time. And I think being interactive is really good. Get people involved. That's probably my number one presentation tip, I would say.
Chris, I must say that you're a people's person. I'm really inspired, and you create lasting impressions to people, and you've created one for me about you. I must say, you're doing a great job out there, and very inspiring one, that too. So before we let you go, lastly, with your extensive experience in speaking at conferences and running training courses, like we all know till now, what
Yeah.
advice do you give, or which advice do you have for individuals looking to improve their presentation skills and making a lasting impact on their audience? Can you
Yeah.
please
Well,
tell us about that?
I I would definitely say practice. I mean, I used to be really nervous about doing talks, and now I'm not nervous at all. I don't worry about it because I do it all the time. But funnily enough, if I don't do a talk for, say, a few weeks, I start to get nervous again. And it's okay to be a bit nervous. I mean, that's fine. Um, but practice. So you could get started by just when you're in a meeting, you could volunteer to give a quick summary of what's happening in your area, or you could say, I'll go and talk to the customer, and at the next meeting, I'll report back. And you could volunteer to give a little talk, just 5 minutes. Or you could volunteer to do a talk to new people starting in a company. You could say, look, I'll talk to the new starters about how our computer system works or how we deal with customers or something like that. So you could volunteer to do talks like that. And then you could volunteer to do a bit of training. You could say, look, I'm in the sales department. I'd quite like to train the new salespeople or something. Or I could do a talk to everyone else about what we in the sales department need from the other departments. So I think volunteer to do little talks and little training sessions to practice. And if there's a conference and somebody's got to go to the conference to represent the company, volunteer to do it. And then you'll be thinking, oh no, what have I done? This is really scary. But it's okay because, you'll be fine. And you'll get a buzz from it, and you'll soon be the person who always does that. Oh yeah, Barkha always does the conference talk. We'll send her. So, and that's great because then you get visibility to everybody and you'll be offered jobs and all sorts of things will come. So volunteer, I think, would be my big thing. I also mentioned being interactive just now. So whatever the talk is, always say to people, what do you think? Do you agree with this? Have you found this? And I know it adds an element of the unexpected, but it'll be fine. And if they ask a question you can't answer, you can always go, yeah, that was the one question I was hoping nobody would ask because I haven't got an answer to that one. It's fine. You can admit. So I think being interactive would be my big tip. And then I think finally, have a good ending. So quite often people do a talk and at the end they say, well, so there we are. That's that's my talk really. I hope it wasn't too boring. And any questions? And it sort of fizzles out. And I think it's important to plan how you're going to end. So you must say, so there you are. Those are my top 3 tips. Something that's going to make everyone go, yeah, or so I hope I've showed you that anyone can do it. And that means you as well. Or something like that. So there's a real ending where people go, yeah. So you need to think a little bit. And endings are difficult. But that's why you mustn't improvise. You must plan your ending. So I think practice, be interactive, plan a good ending. Because the ending is what
can relate more.
Yeah, and that's what they'll remember. As they walk out of the room, they'll remember the ending particularly. So you do need to end on a good note. I think they would probably be my tips.
You literally did it on a good note. In fact, on a very insightful note. And this whole conversation was all about good insights from Mr. Chris Croft. And it was amazing talking to you, Chris, must say.
Well, I hope
We
it's
should
useful.
do that
I hope
often.
it helps people.
Thank you.
And hi to everybody. I'm hoping that it'll be mostly an Indian audience. I don't know. But I'm already looking forward to when I can visit again, which will be great.
Yes.
And we will meet up. And you can take me to your favorite restaurant, show me the best pakoras and also the best samosas in town. That would be really good.
I'll make one for you.
Homemade. Oh, well, now you're talking. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Thank you for doing this, Chris. Means a lot. Thank you for joining us today on Talk Through Thursday. And it was amazing to know about the different concepts altogether on project management, happiness, and on time management. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing transformative session filled with insights and diverse perspectives in the journey of transformation and happiness, which is the core content of everybody out here, and we all want happiness. And now we know through your book that how can we be happy, right? We hope you have gained valuable takeaways from today's guest. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for updates on further episodes and follow us on social media to continue these conversations beyond the show. Remember, your voice matters, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, keep talking, keep listening, and keep making an impact.
It's a pleasure.
Great talking to you. Pranam.
It's good. Yes. No, thank you for helping me. Namaste for having me and all that. It's been great.